All right. So let's talk about this Wii Spa controversy, okay? Um, Earlier this summer, a woman complained to this spa in LA that someone in the changing room had exposed their penis to the women and girls back there. This person apparently identified as a trans woman, and the spa's policy was to allow trans and non-trans people in their changing rooms together. So they wasn't breaking any sort of policy at the spa. This led to protests and counter-protests, and Antifa and the Proud Boys were there, and there was a bunch of fighting, and the cops had to get involved, and they had to, forcefully put down some of these protests. And so, yeah, the media coverage was super biased. Basically, we had outfits calling this a hoax, saying that this was all made up, that there wasn't even a trans person back there, that this was all a right-wing plant, that all of this was just an anti-trans, setup, basically. Which, I guess I could see that's a realistic theory, but of course, in the media, you're not supposed to just make wild theories. You're supposed to do some research, do your homework, investigate, find out what's going on. Now, eventually, we did find out, at least something that's something concrete, and that is that there was someone identifying as a trans woman in that spa, and this person is named Darren Agee Merager. Now, Merager has been charges have been pressed against Merager by the Los Angeles police because for indecent exposure, and it turns out that Merager has a long rap sheet, including numerous instances of public indecency, exposing themselves to women. They are a tier 1 sex offender, registered sex offender, although in 2008 they were charged for failing to register as a sex offender. So this person has, quite a long history of breaking the law and of public indecency. So not exactly the poster child of the trans rights movement, although still a lot of people are arguing that this was a perfectly fine thing to do, even though the 5 women who spoke with police allegedly have said that the Merager's penis was at least partially erect in the changing room, which, doesn't look good. And we here we come to this whole thing where I am all in favor of, treating trans people with compassion and tolerance and, equal rights. But I think that when we have any sort of conversation about trans issues, it becomes just so dicey, and people are so angry all the time when you talk about this stuff. If you want to just say, well, we should talk about, trans athletes and fairness. That's a hard conversation. It's not a decided conversation. And the same thing goes for, changing rooms in gyms and spas and things like that. I don't think it's transphobic to say that a lot of biological women have every right to feel uncomfortable when suddenly there's male genitalia in front of them in a traditionally female space. Especially because a lot of women have, legitimate fears about sexual assault, have experienced sexual assault of some kind in the past, and this could be triggering, this could be traumatizing, or it could just be super awkward. And I do think, you want to treat everyone with respect. You want to treat everyone with tolerance. We want to find ways to make everybody happy, if possible. And if a trans woman doesn't feel comfortable in the men's changing room, I get it. I get that that's a hard thing. What do you do? Where do you go? If you're a trans woman or a trans man for that matter, where do you go? Because you're not going to feel at home necessarily in either place. And then, if you go to the women's changing room, then maybe some women, not because they're transphobic, because just they're not comfortable around this. Then you're not going to feel welcome there, and that's very tough. And I have empathy for that, and for people who are in that situation. But I also have empathy for women who may feel deeply uncomfortable around male genitalia. I can't speak today. So it's a really tough tough issue. The problem with the culture war, the problem with like how we like talk about this issue is it's treated like it's a black and white issue. Merager identifies as a woman, therefore she is a woman. Plain and simple, she can go into any female space. Plain and simple, anyone who says otherwise is a transphobe and a bigot and a hater. But I think that is not a realistic or fair way to treat this issue. It's much, much, much more complicated than that. And I think anyone who says otherwise has drank too much of the Kool-Aid. They, like we can't have this conversation and we can't try to figure it out because, even making a video like this where I think I'm being pretty open-minded and pretty, respectful, I will be certainly called a transphobe for making this video. And that's, and I don't have anything against trans people at all. I just think that like we need to be realistic about what's fair, what's safe for everyone, especially because someone like Merager, who has this long history of public exposure and public indecency, theoretically could be using this identity as a way to have cover so that they can go into women's spaces and see naked women. Why not? Why wouldn't people take advantage of the cultural moment that we're in to do that? That's, of course, there's many trans people who are not, exhibitionists, and they're not like perverts trying to just, get a view of women in the bathroom. But some people are going to do that. I mean, that's just, it's human nature, right? People are going to take advantage. And we have to find a way where we can, figure out who's doing that and not just defend them as though there is some baked in virtue with simply identifying as the opposite gender. It doesn't make you more virtuous. It doesn't make you a better person to be trans. It doesn't make you a better or more virtuous person. You're still just a person. And if we're going to treat everyone equally, if we're going to treat everyone like a human being, then that means that we have to be realistic and understand that some people are just not good people. It doesn't matter how they identify. I don't know. I don't know if this person has just gotten the short end of the stick, if they have just gotten targeted because they are trans, but it seems like there are a lot of other trans women in California who are not walking around with all these public indecency charges, right? And I think a little courtesy, a little respect, and a little open-mindedness goes a long ways. And we can't treat this topic like there's only one right way to think about it, only one right way to speak about it. And anyone who diverges from that, anyone who raises any doubts, is a TERF or a transphobe or a hater or a bigot or whatever, right? I think you can be compassionate and want only the best for people and still think that some of this shit has gone off the rails. So that's where I'm at. Just wanted to hop in there and say that. It's funny because like even just talking about this stuff, I feel there's always this like little bit of like fear because again, you just say anything that goes outside of the very narrow hegemonic view of these issues and you are a transphobe. But I am not a transphobe. I have nothing against trans people. I just think we need to balance the concerns of both of both trans people and biological females, especially, because there are rights, human rights, whatever, trans rights. They can come into conflict with other people's rights. Rights aren't always just this pure thing. You say, well, that's a right. Well, sometimes rights come into conflict with one another, and then it becomes very, very hard to figure out. But that's why we have to talk about it. That's why we have to be open to talking about it and not just always shrieking and calling people horrible haters and shutting down conversation before it can happen. So that's where I'm at. Sometimes, you have to peel back the layers a little bit more. And I think ultimately it just all comes down to like my favorite saying, Bill and Ted, be excellent to each other. And to do that, I think we have to really be honest and really withhold a little bit of our judgment and proceed accordingly. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. Peace. I'm out.